So we are going to do the India versus Australia Border-Gavaskar Trophy preview today. So we have Jack alongside from the Dibbly Dobbly Podcast once again joining us. How are you, Jack? First of all, it's a very important series, I would feel, for both the teams. It's going to be a very interesting series. But how are you feeling and how excited are you for this series? Because I think this will determine whether India is going to go to the WTC finals or not. And I would feel Australia would like to win a series away from Australia because the way that India beat Australia back in 2019, I would feel Australia would want to make amends out of that.
Yes, thanks, Power, for having me on. I'm feeling great and very excited for this series. It's, as you said, it's a big series, of course, between India and Australia, and it is going to be a very entertaining series throughout the 4 Test matches. And yes, plenty on the line. A series win, Border-Gavaskar Trophy, but also a place in the WTC final for both teams. So it's going to be exciting cricket. It's going to be enthralling cricket. And it's going to be a very good series. And for Australia, they would like to win in India and break the drought. It's 2004 is the last time Australia won in India.
True.
So they'll be hoping to tick it off the list of things they want to achieve as a team. And no doubt this India series is one of them.
Very true. I think checking on the schedule, I think the first test is going to be in Nagpur, and in the second test they will be going to Delhi. Third test will be in Dharmashala, and in the fourth test, I think in the Narendra Modi Stadium, Ahmedabad. I think both the Australian Prime Minister and the Indian Prime Minister is going to attend for that. So that will be exciting to see how things will go. So first of all, let's discuss about the Australian Test squad. Since you're Australian, Jack. First of all, as we see here, the Australian Test squad, we have Pat Cummins as captain, we have Ashton Agar, Scott Boland, Alex Carey, the wicketkeeper, Cameron Green, Peter Hanscombe, Josh Hazelwood, Travis Head, Usman Khawaja, Manas Labuschagne, Nathan Lyon. We have Lance Morris making it for the first time. We have Todd Murphy making it for the first time. Matt Renshaw, Stephen Smith, vice captain, Mitchell Starc, Mitchell Swepson, and David Warner. Jack, how satisfied are you with this squad? And also a few words on Todd Murphy, because I think for the first time we are seeing Todd Murphy in this squad for Australia, and he perhaps could be a wild card also for Australia. I'm not sure when they're going to use him, but your thoughts, especially on this Australian squad, and a few words also and a few insights on Todd Murphy as well.
Yeah, it's a pretty good squad. It's a strong squad. It's probably the best squad we can select for a tour of India in a long time. A lot of good players in the squad, bat and ball. Exciting things to come, I hope, for this squad in this series. Todd Murphy, he's done very well. He's only played 10 first-class games, 29 wickets at 25, so that's not bad to start your career. And he's a carbon copy of Nathan Lyon in a way. So right-arm off-spinner, bowls exactly the same as Nathan Lyon, and that's why a lot of people are excited about him. So he'll definitely get an opportunity if required. Depends on conditions. We're talking about Nathan Lyon and Todd Murphy playing together, which you don't often see in many bowling attacks. 2 right-arm off-spinners. It just doesn't happen. But Australia are toiling with that idea. So he may get an opportunity. Depends on conditions. Depends if there's right or left-handers in the Indian batting lineup as well. But he's an exciting young player, and he gets his opportunity, and hopefully he'll grab it with both hands if selected. But just to finish off on the squad, it's a pretty good squad, and hopefully for Pat Cummins in Australia, it can be the squad to win this series. But it's going to take a team effort, that's for sure.
Very true. And coming to the Indian squad, obviously, we have Rohit Sharma as captain. We have KL Rahul, Shubman Gill, Pujara is there, Kohli, I think he's come back to form. We have Shreyas Iyer, Kesh Bharat, Ishan Kishan, Ravichandran Ashwin, Akshar Patel, Kuldeep Yadav, Ravindra Jadeja, Mohammad Shami, Mohammad Siraj, Umesh Yadav, Surya Kumar Yadav, and Jaidev Unadkat. Jack, seeing this squad, who do you think will be the most, who will be a threat to this Australian squad? Who do you think will be like the 2 most key players that Australia would obviously be watching out for, and perhaps would be making a plan to obviously prevent them from having any success from this Border-Gavaskar Trophy?
Well, in terms of the bowling for India, the biggest threat is Ashwin, of course. He has a very good record in India, good record against Australia. And he will be the main threat for Australia and their batsmen. So that's one. The other one is potentially Virat Kohli, I feel. He always loves playing against Australia, has a good record against Australia. So I feel like he's got a big role to play as well. And he's starting to get back into some form, but he hasn't translated that into the test format. He has in the one days and T20s of late for India. So he'll be tipping for a big series from him. So I think those two will be the biggest threats for Australia, and they got to find ways to nullify those big threats of Ashwin and Curley and the rest of the Indian squad, because it's a very talented squad, and whoever they pick in the 11 is going to be a hard team to beat. So, but if Australia got to plan carefully, they got to find ways to grind it out and really put India under some pressure, because that's the only way they're going to win this series. If they can do that, they go a long way to winning this series. If they don't, then it's going to be a tough battle.
Very true. Yeah. So we got news previously that Stark won't be available for the first test, but I think 2 or 3 days ago we got to know that Josh Hazlewood is also going to miss out of the first test match against India at Nagpur. So how big of a blow is this, Jack? And do you think there are replacements for Josh Hazlewood perhaps who could play in that playing 11? Because Josh Hazlewood and Mitchell Stark both missing in overseas conditions is a big blow, I would feel. But do you think there's anyone in the squad, such as Lance Morris or someone else, perhaps, who could take over from Josh Hazlewood? Your thoughts of both these players missing out the first test?
It's not ideal. We knew that Mitchell Stark was going to miss the first test from a long way out. When the Australian summer was still on against South Africa, we knew that he wasn't going to play this first test. It was going to be touch and go. But hopefully he'll come back for the second test, which he's on track to do so. So let's hope for Australia's sake he does come back. Not ideal with injuries. They happen. Josh Hazlewood, the Achilles injury, he will be touch and go for the second test as well. So that's a shame with Josh. He's just come back into the side. He's played limited test cricket, picked up a side strain during the Australian summer, and came back for the last test against South Africa. So it's not ideal for him. Potential replacements. Well, you've got Lance Morris. He's pretty good. He bowls fast and quick. You've got Scott Boland. He will be the likely replacement for Josh Hazlewood. I think he's firming as a starter for the 11 for the first test with Pat Cummins to partner him with a new ball. Yeah. But Lance Morris as well, he can come in and make his debut and make an impact. Especially, it'll be interesting to see how he bowls in these conditions, especially if the ball's reversing and he can do it at pace. So that's going to be a handful, and that's going to be a real asset for Australia. Australia got plenty of options. It's just which options do they go with, which options work, and they'll work through that as they work out their best 11 for the first test. But it's not ideal. But let's hope Starkey and Josh can come back for the remainder of the series and have an impact for Australia and hopefully contribute to some success on this tour.
Yeah. Also, Jack, I want to talk about Pat Cummins' captaincy, because so far I've been quite impressed. Certain ways. Obviously in the West Indies series, I didn't see much of Pat Cummins' leadership, because anyways, West Indies were struggling in the conditions with Australia. Plus, Australia had the best players to obviously dismantle them. But from the past year that you've seen from Pat Cummins and the way he's led the team, how satisfied are you with the way that Pat Cummins has led this team? Because it's not easy for a bowler, obviously, and we discussed this also in the past year as well about Pat Cummins leading this test team. So your thoughts on Pat Cummins and how much, how can he obviously it's going to be a tough ask to obviously beat India at home. It's probably the most difficult thing to do, in test cricket right now, with the way that India is performing at home. But how do you think his leadership skills will work in a scenario like this?
Yeah, I've been impressed with his captaincy. He's really taken to the captaincy. He's the right man for the job, I feel. He's got good leadership skills, qualities, and he's done a good job. He's been tested at times. Yes, the opposition like England, West Indies, and South Africa haven't been the strongest to play against, but you can only play against the 11 that's presented in front of you with the opposition. And he's captained really well during his tenure since he took over a couple of years ago from Tim Payne. He's done a really good job. I've been really impressed with his composure more so. It's important that a captain has composure, doesn't show any signs of panic or being flustered. And I think that will be the key in India as well for Pat, is to be a calming influence on the team and just say, you know what, we've got this. You know, let's just be patient. Let's stick to the plans. You know, we can do this. So he's got that demeanor about him. He's got that charisma about him where everyone just plays for Pat. He's a match winner himself. He leads from the front. And, you know, he understands bowling. You know, to be a good captain, someone once said, you have to be good at knowing the tactics when it comes to the game and also bowling. You've got to know bowling. And he knows bowling. So that works quite well. So he's really captained the side well. This will be his biggest test. It's not easy. But, you know, he will relish the challenge, that's for sure. And he's got to be, you know, really concise with his plans and how he's going to go about leading the side. I think we've seen that in the test documentary in season 2 with Pat Cummins explaining his captaincy. You know, he has his clear ideas of how he wants to lead the side, and he wants to be a calming influence, and that's going to be important for Australia to not panic when the situations get tough, because they will get tough. They will be tested. There'll be good days and bad days. It's just how you come back from that. So Pat Cummins as a leader is good. Really happy with how he's going, and hopefully he can pull it off and win the series. It will be a big thing next to his name. He's already won the Ashes, so winning a series in India, he will be the 5th Australian captain to do that if he can. There's been 4 previous captains before him who have done it, so he will be the 5th if he can do it, and that will be a great achievement. So yeah, really looking forward to how Pat marshals the troops. I think he'll do a good job. He'll be tested, biggest test of his captaincy, but I think he's up for it.
Yeah, very true with that. So let's go to the key players for this test series, what have come up with. I mean, let's just go through the key players, obviously, for this test series upcoming. So first of all, I feel that Akshar Patel could be sort of a threat to this Australian batsman, because as we see, Tenley, I mean, usually Australians tend to struggle against left-arm orthodox spinners or against left-arm spinners. We've observed that in both Sri Lanka and Pakistan. I think in Pakistan series also there was Sajid Khan, obviously, to trouble the Australians. And then in the Sri Lankan series, we saw Prabhat Jayasuriya obviously troubling the Australians as well. And we spoke about that, I think, 7 months earlier. But coming to Akshar Patel, and he's seriously good at home. I mean, he's played a few test matches, but still I feel he'll be in the playing 11 alongside Ashwin and Jadeja. And I know Ashwin is also a big threat to this Australian team. But Akshar Patel, I think, especially with his left arm and especially with his success in the Indian pitches, and I think Australia also have already said that they are coming up with plans against Akshar Patel as they find him a bit tough. So how do you think the Australian batters, especially Labuschagne, Steven Smith, David Warner, Marcus Harris, how will these players come back to Akshar Patel, especially how they're going to be tested against Akshar Patel in this upcoming test series?
It will be a big test. Australia don't generally bat well against left-arm spinners. We know that. The record's not good. But, you know, you just have to find ways and methods to deal with him. You know how good of a bowler he is. We saw him burst on the scene against England, and he took those wickets in Ahmedabad in that day-night test, didn't he? Yes. So he can be dangerous. But you just got to try and nullify him. You got to put him under pressure. And I think that will be the key for Australia, especially to all the spinners, not just Patel, but Ashwin, Jadeja. You got to put them under pressure. You got to take the game on. You got to use your feet down to the pitch of the ball, put the line length off the spinners, you know, make them change their lines and lengths, rotate the strike. So if you've got a right and left-hander at the crease, you know, that will frustrate the opposition, because the opposition have to change their fields and change their lines and lengths, the bowlers as well. So that's one way of doing it. But it's going to be a challenge, but they're prepared. They've, worked out some ways to deal with him. He's a very good bowler. First time potentially playing against Australia if he's in the 11. So he will be under pressure as well. So it'll be an interesting battle. But for Australia, they've got their plans. And if they do the basics well enough and combat him and try and nullify him, I think they'll have success over him and probably the other spinners as well. Time will tell.
Very true about that, yeah. And let's talk about the current number one test batsman currently in the ICC rankings, Marnus Labuschagne, because he's been having a phenomenal year. I mean, last year he had a really, really good year, I would feel, and he was performing really well in Australia. But in India, his stats aren't that great. I mean, that's because I think perhaps he's not played enough test matches yet. He's played in 7 matches, 403 runs at an average of 33. I think he's so far played in Pakistan. I think Pakistan have been quite high scoring grounds. I mean, especially it's a very good batting track, I would feel. But in India, it's different. Obviously, it offers something for the spinners and for the batsmen. And Marnus Labuschagne will be tested, obviously, in India, especially with the trio of spinners of Jadeja, Ashwin and Akshar Patel, or perhaps Kuldeep also could play a part. So how do you think Marnus Labuschagne, how will he perform in these pitches in India? I mean, if I'm not mistaken, it could be his first time playing over in India, so it's going to be interesting to see. So I think his footwork and obviously I think his patience will be obviously be tested. So thoughts, Jack, on Marnus Labuschagne?
Yeah, he's a very good player, Marnus. He's had a very good start to his career. No doubt he'll be tested. Promising signs in Sri Lanka where he scored that century, which is similar to what you'll get in India, because the ball turns more in Sri Lanka and India than Pakistan. In Pakistan, he didn't have the results that he would have wanted, which is understandable. Your first time in the subcontinent proper. So for him, he will be tested in this series, no doubt about that. He's already talking about plans that he's got against combating Ashwin, which is good to see. The best players in the world, they always want to get better, and they're always thinking about the potential matchups and, the opposition bowlers, which is good to see. He'll be tested. He's an important cog at number 3 for Australia. He's got to play a part if Australia have any success in this series. Smith, Labuschagne in particular, got to score runs. So he's one of the key players for Australia. Yes, the record in Asia is not good, but it's early stages. He's only played a few tests, so we can't really judge him on those stats alone. So we have to wait and see how he does in this series. But I think he'll relish the challenge. I think he'll find ways to, get through it and get through the tough periods and score runs. He's a very good player. The best players in the world find a way. So he'll find a way. It will be a big test for him, first time in India, under the pressure of a big series, but I think he'll relish it. And I think he'll do okay, Marnus. Let's see what he can do. I think he'll surprise some people, I think.
Very true. And obviously, we knew that one threat of India would be Virat Kohli, as you said. And we know Virat Kohli has a really good record at the Border-Gavaskar Trophy. He's played 20 matches, scored 1,682 runs, just below Steven Smith and Pujara, who has the highest run scorer amongst active players right now. His average is 48. So thoughts on Virat Kohli, because I think Virat Kohli, he hasn't scored a test century in 3 years, we know that. But still, I mean, he's come back, he's regained his form. He's got a century in both 2020s and ODI cricket. He obviously had battles against Australia in the past, especially against bowlers. He was not happy with, in previous seasons, he found certain things, certain banters to be not great for him. And he obviously challenged them and obviously got amongst the runs. Back in 2012, it was the same thing. 2014, 2019, all the Border-Gavaskar trophies, he's had success. So, your thoughts on Virat Kohli? Because I think he could be the batsman that Australian bowlers would find difficult to obviously get him dismissed. Because with the way that he's coming back, if he gets a century, he could be a batter that cannot be stopped right now with the form that he's in.
Yes, he's a very good player, Virat, and especially in India, He plays really well, especially against Australia. He has a pretty good record against them. For Australia to have any success, they have to take key wickets early. They have to get the key batters out for India. Virat Kohli's one of them. And if they can get him out early, then they're a good chance of causing some damage in this series, because they have to bowl India out for cheap scores, I feel. First innings runs are going to be so crucial for both teams. And for Australia to win, they've got to put big first innings runs on the board. And if they can do that, then put India under some pressure with the ball, then they're a good chance. So Virat Kohli is definitely one of the batsmen that Australia would fear. He's like Steve Smith. Once he gets in the zone, you can't stop him. He's unstoppable. So you got to try and get him out early and try and nullify his effect, really. So make sure you build the pressure, dot balls, do the basics, keep him tied down for a bit, because he likes to score, likes to get on with it. But if you put him under pressure, he'll make a mistake and get out. So hopefully that's the case for Australia. But he's definitely going to be a big player in this series for India. For India to have success, he's got to score runs. He's got to stand up. It's a big series. The big players have to stand up and do that. So definitely for Australia, it will be a challenge to get him out. But, Australia have quality bowlers, Cummins and Co. They'll test him out. And, Pat Cummins, is a very good bowler. You got Mitchell Starc, you got Hazelwood, you got Nathan Lyon. So they're all good bowlers. They've all dismissed Virat in the past, so they know what to do against him. So they've got their plans, Australia, and they'll be hoping the plans work in this series. If they don't, that's not a good thing. But if they do, that's a good thing for Australia, because they're one step closer to winning the series. So it'll be intriguing to see how Virat goes in this series. He's got a point to prove. He hasn't scored a century for a while in Test cricket, so this could be the series where he goes off, hopefully for India. Hopefully not for Australia, but it's always great to see the best players in full flight. And let's hope Virat can have a very productive series.
Very true. And let's talk about the main spinner of Australia right now, which is Nathan Lyon, obviously. He's obviously played in 7 Test matches. He's picked up 34 wickets and an average of 30, con of 3.58. Good stats over here from Nathan Lyon. I mean, he's the key spinner for Australia, obviously. But Jack, I know Nathan Lyon is the main spinner, but do you think perhaps Australia will go for a second spinner? I mean, obviously, it will depend on conditions, obviously, whether Australia will go in a second spinner. But I think Nagpur, it's sort of assists a bit for spinners. And I think in the past also, I think it has been a rank turn. You never know what happens. But do you think, first of all, Australia will go with 2 spinners, or do you think they will depend on Nathan Lyon and perhaps give Marnus Labuschagne perhaps some part-time spinning? Because I think Marnus Labuschagne, even Travis Head, can bowl a bit of spin as well. So your thoughts, especially, do you think they will go for a Mitchell Swepson or give a debut for Todd Murphy, or do you think they will only stick to Nathan Lyon and possibly give 3 fast bowlers? Obviously they'll go with 3 fast bowlers perhaps and 1 spinner.
Yes, Nathan Lyon will hold the key. He will be the key for Australia. Absolutely. He'll bowl a lot of overs. He will need to take wickets for Australia to win this series. It'll be interesting because Australia, they shouldn't get carried away with, you need these X amount of spinners. We need 3 or 2 spinners or whatever. It depends on conditions, of course. Yes. But, the old saying goes, pick your best 11. Pick the best batsman in the side, pick your keeper, and then pick the best bowlers that are going to take you 20 wickets. Australia's best attack is the main attack of Cummins, Starc, Hazelwood, Lyon. That's the best attack to take 20 wickets, and they'll get the job done in India. Obviously, that won't be the case for the first test because Stark's injured and Hazelwood, so they'll have to make some changes there. But pick your best bowlers to take 20 wickets. And the experience, the talk about the second spinner, it's a lack of experience behind Nathan Lyon there. You've also got Ashton Agar as well. You've got Mitchell Swepson. You've got Todd Murphy. He needs to support Nathan Lyon. The second spinner needs to back him up at one end. I'm not really convinced on Ashton Agar after what I saw in the 3rd test in Sydney. He didn't really quite bowl well. And and he'll be tested in India. He hasn't played a test in India. He's only played a test in Bangladesh, a couple of tests in 2017. Mitchell Swepson, he's had a tough start to his test career. He had a tough series in Pakistan. In Sri Lanka, he got a few wickets, which was nice to see. Todd Murphy, untried, he's uncapped. So Australia got options. You've also got Labuschagne Smith, who can bowl leg spin. You've got Travis Head, who's a very good part-time off-spinner. He's really improved his bowling. So Australia have got other options. They can definitely go with 3 quicks, 1 spinner. Then you can have those other part-timers. Or you go in with 2 quicks and 2 spinners. But with Cameron Green not being in the side, Australia can go with the 2 spinners and the 2 quicks, and then you've got Cameron Green as the 3rd seamer. But without him bowling...
sorry to interrupt, but I think he's not available to bowl until April, according to reports, because he's having this hand injury. I mean, the finger injury that he's having. I think he cannot bowl until April. So I think that's the issue that he's behind the bowling. Because anyway, otherwise, I mean, they could go with 3 seamers and 2 spinners. But with Cameron Green injured and unlikely bowl until April, I think there's an issue with the combination of the bowling right now, because they would like to have that 3rd seamer for Australia right now, because they do prefer to have 3 seamers usually in the playing 11.
Yes, that's right. Exactly right. Without Green in the side, it's hard to do that. Then you have to play an extra batter if that's the case, because you can't be 1 batter short in India. You need batting. You need the extra batter. And I feel like Australia need the extra batter because runs are going to be important. And the bowlers would take 20 wickets. That will sort itself out. But, from what I've seen, what I've heard, he's making good progress, Cameron Green. The finger's healing well. And even the medical staff are surprised by the rate of the recovery. So he's actually on track to recover and hopefully get back to batting and bowling very soon. So hopefully it can be in this series. I think they said he's around about 85%. So he's not quite 100%.
I think he can bat right now, but he can't bowl, I think. That's
yes,
what
he's batting. Right, he's doing that, and he's also working towards bowling as well. So he'll do everything he can to do that. But he's recovering well, and they're quite happy with that. It's not ideal that he's injured, and he does offer that balance. So it does upset Australia's combinations a bit there. So it'll be interesting to see what they do for the first test in particular, and then if the second and third and fourth tests, they've got their main bowlers back, then they can sort of work around that. But for Nathan Lyon, the second spinner, it's important for the second spinner to back him up, really, because you're the second frontline spinner. You have to back up what Nathan Lyon's doing at the other end. He can't do it by himself. He had a tough series in Pakistan, but got those wickets in the last test and won Australia that last test. In Sri Lanka, he bowled well. He still found it tough at times, but he got the job done. He got wickets. So his record in India is pretty good. He will be taking a lot of wickets. I think he could be the leading wicket taker, probably up there with Ashwin maybe, because they're going to be 2 very important bowlers for both sides. So for Nathan Lyon, he's got a big job to do. I think he's up for it, and he's definitely up for it. It's just a matter of if the other spin bowlers like Murphy, Agar, and Swepson can support him. If they can support him, take wickets, they will take the pressure off him. But if they can't, then it's going to be very tough for Nathan Lyon because he's got that burden on him. So we shall see. But he's a very good bowler, Gaz, and hopefully he has a great series.
Yeah. We have a comment over here from John Weir here. If Green can't bowl, who is the best batsman for number 6? I'm not convinced it's Green if he can't bowl as well.
That's the thing. You've got Matt Renshaw, you've got Peter Hanscom as the backup batters in this side. So it's either going to be one of them to replace Green at number 6. And Matt Renshaw can bowl some spin as well. He can bowl some off spin. Peter Hanscom can't bowl any spin. He's a part-time wicketkeeper. So, Australia will think about that. Matt Renshaw can bowl a few overs. He can, bowl a few overs to give their Nathan Lyon a rest if needed. That will be interesting, but it does upset the balance a bit without Green in the side. If he's playing as a batter only, then in a way that's sort of good for Australia because it's an extra batter in the side, which is great. But but it sort of upsets the combinations because they want to play 3 quicks and have 2 spinners. It'll still work. So it'll be interesting. The selectors have got a lot of thinking to do. But, that's a challenge for Australia that they have to try to overcome and try and find a way. But they'll find a way. They'll figure something out. It's not like they're running out of options. They've got plenty of options. It's just about picking the best combination that will win the test match in that certain test. So we should wait and see what happens.
Because anyways, I think Australia do have the depth, and I think they have like backups for all the positions that they have while picking the squad. So I don't think they'll find a huge difficulty, because anyways, I think playing extra batsmen will be key. I mean, especially in India, I think going with 5 bowlers, and then because they have part-time bowlers who can obviously get wickets as quickly as possible, because we saw Travis Head and Manas Labuschagne contributing in the series against Sri Lanka also. So I feel if they go with extra batsmen, I think it's a bigger advantage for Australia, because anyways they do have those part-timers that can get wickets at crucial times, and anyways Australia have 2 or 3 part-timers who can get wickets if needed, in case if one bowler has a bad day in a test innings. So let's see how that goes around. But let's go to Steve Smith, and we know he's had obviously the most success. He's the key player for Australia when it comes to batting. He's come back in form. It's great to see him back in form, especially in Test, and obviously in 2020 as well for the Big Bash League as well. But can't take that aside. But in Test especially, I think he's come back to form, and especially in India, he's had a brilliant average, because he scored 660 runs in 6 matches and at an average of 60. So Steven Smith, I think the last time in the 2016-17, he was the highest run scorer for Australia in that Test series, and got I think about 200 or 300. So he's had a lot of success in India. So your thoughts of Steve Smith and his role, especially coming in as the experienced player for Australia, regardless whether he's captain or vice captain, he is the senior most player for Australia in this team right now. So how do you think Steve Smith, obviously we know the success that he's had, but obviously alongside Labuschagne, alongside Khawaja and others, what will be his role, especially in that top order?
Oh, he's massive. Yeah, it doesn't take a genius to work it out that Steve Smith is the key. If Australia are to win this series, he's the key. He has to have a big series. Bottom line, really. Because the rest of the batting group have lack of experience. Khawaja hasn't played in India. Labuschagne hasn't played in India. Travis Head, Cameron Green, Alex Carey haven't played in India. He's played in India. David Warner's played in India. So those two have to do majority of the work, but it's Steve Smith who holds the key. His record in India is superb, as we mentioned. He's in good form, and once he gets in the zone, he will be unstoppable. So for India, they have to keep him quiet and try and outsmart him. But he's going to outsmart the Indian bowlers, isn't he? Because he's a very good problem solver. So it's going to be tough work for them to try and get him out, because he'll just think, miles ahead of them and outsmart them. So he holds the key, Steve Smith, because Australia need big first innings runs. And if he scores big hundreds, they'll do that. And they'll go on to win some test matches and win this series. He holds the key. He's the best batsman in the world right now. He's probably the best of all time. Certainly in Australian circles, he's the reincarnation of Sir Donald Bradman in this modern era. And he's batting better than he ever has in the last few years. So if he can have a great series like he did in the 2019 Ashes, where he just went off, if he can do that in India, then Australia will go a long way. Because I do feel that he'll probably have a big series, because he will really want to tick this off his career on the list of achievements. And he will have a say whether or not, Australia go on to win this series or not. But he's definitely the key. He's the key wicket for India to try and stop Australia. He's the key batter for Australia if they are going to post big scores in the first innings to win test matches and put India under pressure. He's definitely the big batter. So hopefully he has a great series, and I can't wait to see what he can do, because he's just going to tear this series to shreds if he gets going.
Very true. Yeah. Got another comment here from John Weir once again. He says, I think Renshaw might get a run if the selectors go with 6 batters. Green has a big question mark over him.
Yes. I think Renshaw, he played the last test in Sydney against South Africa, so it's only fair to give him another run, which as a selector, that's what you do. You give someone an extended run. Green's, in doubt for that first test, and he'll probably, come back for the second, third, or fourth. Depends. But he definitely won't play the first test. So I think I agree with John there. I think he'll get a go. Question mark over Cameron Green. Just basically, bit touch and go for this first test. But hopefully, for the remainder of the series, he can play a part. But I think Renshaw will get another go, and they'll stick with him, and hopefully he'll have a good contribution with the bat in the series if he can.
Yeah. Jack, your thoughts on Usman Khawaja? Because Usman Khawaja, I know he's not played in India, but I think in Pakistan he had a very good series. I think he scored 100 over there, and also he's had success in Australia as well, coming back to the Test team back in 2022 last year. So how key will Khawaja be? Because I think Khawaja and Vaughan obviously would want to put up a good stand, obviously, and obviously trouble the Indian bowlers. Obviously, that opening partnership will be key, especially in the first innings, if they want to score a high score around 400 or 500 in the first test innings, which won't be easy against these Indian bowlers. So how key would it be for Khawaja? Especially, I know he doesn't have the experience in India, but playing in subcontinental conditions like in Sri Lanka and Pakistan, mainly he was playing in the recent Pakistan series. So how key will it be for Khawaja to get a good start and not giving his wicket away, especially against the spinners?
It'll be vitally important. I think he's definitely one of the batters that Australia need to fire and to score runs. Him, Warner, Labuschagne, and Smith, the top order, basically. The top four, basically, need to score majority of the runs. And then Travis Head can come in and do what he does best and counter-attack. But for Khawaja, he hasn't played in India. This is the first time. But in Pakistan, he scored a couple of centuries in Karachi and Lahore in the last two tests, and that was great to see. He batted really well. In Sri Lanka, he made that 70-odd in the first test, I believe, and he did okay on that pitch in Gaul that turned from square from ball one, which was no surprise, as it does in Sri Lanka. But he handled that pretty well. So, he would have got confidence from those performances in Pakistan and Sri Lanka. There's a different kettle of fish when you go to India, of course. But no doubt he will be determined to, provide a good opening stand with Warner and get the platform set for Australia for a big score. So Labuschagne and Smith can come in and do what they do best. So he's going to have a big role to play as opener. He'll be tested, but I think his play against spin has improved. I remember the century he got against Pakistan in 2018 in the UAE to save the game for Australia. That was a very good innings. And he was facing good spinners that Pakistan had at the time. I think Yasir Shah, was playing in that test. So he, proved his doubters wrong against playing spin. He's definitely improved. He'll definitely play the sweep and reverse sweep, and all the Australian batters will do that. It won't be a surprise to anyone. They'll get the sweep shot out, conventional and unconventional. So he'll have a big role to play. And, he's in good touch. He's in good form. He's come back into the side. He's played really well. He's enjoying his cricket, which is great. And he'll be up for the challenge. And I hope for Khawaja he has a good series.
Yeah, very true with that. So I think we spoke about the threats. We spoke about the key players. We'll just speak a touch on the strengths and weaknesses also, and the areas that Australia could possibly improve. So, Jack, what do you see about the strengths of this Australian team when it comes to going to India? Who do you think probably could be the strengths probably for the Australian team for the upcoming Indian series? I think probably the squad depth could be one thing that Australia has when it comes to strengths. But any other strengths you see for Australia for this upcoming Test series?
Well, many teams have strengths and weaknesses. Australia certainly do. Their biggest weakness is obviously playing spin, and it's going to be trial by spin. If they can overcome that weakness and get on top of the Indian spinners, then I think they'll go a long way within the series. Their strength is their bowling attack. is relentless. They just don't give you anything. We saw that in this summer in Australia recently against the West Indies and South Africa that were pretty good, be it against oppositions that are struggling at the moment. But no doubt the Indian batsmen know they will be in a battle because the Australian attack won't give them an inch. So that's their strength. Their bowling's their strength. Their weakness is playing against spin. So if they can, do well with their biggest strength, which is their bowling, and hope their batting can overcome the spin of India, then if they can put big runs on the board and their bowling can take wickets, then they can win this series. So I think those are the strengths and weaknesses they have in this team at the moment. It's a pretty good squad, a strong squad. So the depth is good. They've got a lot of options, and if they can really play to their strengths and improve their weaknesses, they can definitely win the series. Time will tell.
Very true. And I think it's the reverse for India. As we know, the spinners obviously are going to be their strengths. Obviously, we know Ashwin, Jadeja, and Akshay. I think especially Jadeja coming back to the Indian squad, Jack, I think recently picked up 7 wickets in a domestic match. So I think Jadeja will be key in all 3 aspects, especially batting, bowling, and as an all-rounder. I think Jadeja is really, really key for this Indian team. And obviously, I think the weakness could be that top order, I would feel, because I think Rohit Sharma and Shubman Gill, hopefully they can fire. I think that is the main issue that India has. I think Rohit Sharma's form will be very key for India if they want to obviously win this series. I would feel obviously Rohit Sharma firing for India at the start would be very key. And obviously that middle order, Jack coming, because especially Rishabh Pant is not there for India this time around. They have to rely on either KL Rahul or KS Bharat. I think most likely KL Rahul will be playing. And obviously Surya Kumar Yadav is going to make a debut, apparently, according to sources. So do you think the middle order for India right now is a bit weak, especially with the absence of both Iyer and Pant? I know Iyer is in the squad, but he'll be missing in the first test. So do you think that's a patch hole for India right now, especially that middle order?
Yeah, it is. Obviously, we wish Rishabh Pant all the best and hope he recovers soon. And he's on the recovery path, which is great. He's a big miss for India, of course, because he's an aggressive type batter, and he provides that counter attack down the order. So they'll dearly miss him, India. So yeah, that middle order a little bit in terms of experience is lacking a bit. So if Australia can exploit that, then they're a good chance of causing some damage. So really for India, it's a top order that's got to do the job. I think it's going to be, Rohit Sharma, Virat Kohli, Pujara. He'll definitely be in the 11 probably. They've got to stand up and they really got to take the lead and hope the other batters can come in and support them and hopefully cope with the pressure that will be caused by the Australian bowlers, because, Australia have a very good attack. We know that. And the Indian batsmen have to be ready for that. So, yeah, I agree with what you've said there. Their middle order is going to be tested. Some of their players got to stand up and really take charge in this series if India have any chance of posting big scores and putting pressure on Australia. So we shall see how they go about that and how they overcome that challenge.
Very true. John Weir here has another question. He says, I feel Boland will be crucial for Australia. He could fill a role like Peter Siddle and Ryan Harris did in the past.
Yeah, he can. He's that sort of bowler, bowls line and length and, just bowls overs non-stop. And he can definitely do that. He can definitely fill a role like Siddle and Ryan Harris did in the past, that's for sure. Scott Boland. So it'll be interesting to see how he goes. If the ball has a bit of reverse as well, he could be a handful as well with his accuracy and line and length. So he's definitely going to play a big part for Australia, no doubt about that. And all the bowlers are going to play a big part. For Australia.
Yeah. So before trying to wrap things up, Jack, I want to talk about the wicketkeeper for Australia right now, which is Alex Carey. Obviously, we know Alex Carey has been doing well in Australian conditions, but as we know, I think he's sort of a bit inexperienced when it comes to Asian conditions, and especially that number 6, number 7 will be key for Australia right now. So what kind of a role will Alex Carey do for the Australian team? Because I think both. I mean, Travis Head has had a brilliant, been exceptional against in Australian conditions, but Alex Carey, he's performed well in certain innings. He's been a bit inconsistent at times, but what will be the role that Alex Carey will be bringing to this Australian team, especially the playing 11?
Yeah, Alex has come on into Test cricket. He's done okay. It was good to see him score that century in Melbourne against South Africa. He's got the monkey off his back, which is great for him. He will play a role. Obviously, your wicketkeeper is such an important asset in India, in the subcontinent, especially keeping to spin. And you can't afford to drop chances. You can't have a slip of concentration. If you do, that's the difference of taking a catch and dropping it.
Yes.
I know people have criticized Alex Carey because of his keeping. He's been a bit inconsistent, but he's working hard. You can see that. And he's taken some good catches. We've seen that in his career thus far. So he can offer a lot. He can come in at number 7, do a job. He did that in Pakistan. He got a 90 odd in the second test in Karachi, and nearly got his first century there, obviously, but missed out.
Yeah.
And in Sri Lanka he did okay as well. His keeping has improved. He's working hard on that, so no doubt he'll find it a big challenge in India keeping. But he's built that relationship with Nathan Lyon. He's kept wickets to him for a while now. A lot of overs in Pakistan, Sri Lanka, and obviously in India he'll do the same. So for Carey, he's working hard on that, keeping to spin, but also keeping to the pace bowlers and keeping back from the stumps as well as up to them. So he'll play a big role to play. He will play the reverse sweep. He'll play the sweep shot against spin. That's his go-to shot. He's an aggressive player. He wants to have bat on ball and get on with it. And I think Australia need that. I think they've got to be aggressive with the bat and take the game on. And Alex Carey would definitely do that. So I hope he has a good series behind the stumps. And I may be a little bit biased because he's from South Australia, of course, and Travis Head, and I would like to see them do well. So I hope he has a good series with the gloves and with the bat as well, and hopefully make valuable contributions to Australia. But he's going to play a big role behind the stumps, and also he's going to be handy at number 7 with the bat, and especially batting with the tail as well in those situations, being there when needed, and hopefully he can score runs. But so he's got a lot of confidence after that century, and hopefully he can grab that confidence in this series. He'll definitely be up for the challenge, that's for sure.
Yeah, John here says Carey now has a test century, so that monkey is off his back should give him a lot of confidence. I think, Jack just mentioned about that. Yeah, I think That's a huge thing for Carey. I think getting that maiden test century, that's off his head. Now he can obviously focus and try to get more test centuries for Australia, because it's not easy for a number 7, especially a wicketkeeper, to get a century. Only a few obviously have success. Like Adam Gilchrist, hopefully Alex Carey could be sort of a player like him in the future perhaps, and could improve his keeping skills. So let's see how Alex Carey does in the future. Jack, obviously we know Stark and Hazelwood is not there for the first test, but what will be your probable bowling attack? I won't be asking you for the playing 11 because it depends on conditions and all, but especially in Nagpur, like what would be the bowling attack without Stark and Hazelwood? Who's going to replace him, and how do you see the bowling attack going to be like? Because it's their strength, obviously.
It'll be interesting. Well, you would think obviously Cummins, because he's captain, so he's there. If Australia go with 2 quicks, it's either going to be Scott Boland or Lance Morris. I think they will go with Scott Boland, just because he's played a lot of Test cricket and he's done pretty well. So he deserves an opportunity, to play. And then Nathan Lyon for the spin, obviously, and then probably either Swepson or Ashton Agar if they want a left-arm spinner for that variety. So they could go with that. Or they go with 3 quicks and play 2 spinners and have 1 less batsman. They could do that. If that's the case, then probably Ashton Agar has to play, like he did in Sydney. So a similar attack to Sydney if Ashton Agar plays. So it'll be interesting to see how Australia goes. But I think they'll go down that route, or they'll go with 2 off spinners, which is being talked about, and go with Todd Murphy, which hasn't been done very often. But Australia are thinking about that as well. So it'll be interesting to see what the selectors come up with for that first test. But I would think, they'll have a think about it, and they'll come up with the best possible bowling attack if they can. And it goes back to what I said: just pick your best bowlers that are going to take 20 wickets. It doesn't matter if you play 2 spinners or 3 or whatever. Pick your best bowlers that are going to win you the test match and take 20 wickets. And I think that's what Australia should do. If they do that, then it will go a long way to them winning, hopefully, the first test of the series. It's not ideal with Stark and Hazelwood out and Green, obviously, with that balance. But that's cricket. You've got to come up with solutions to these challenges. And hopefully for Australia, they can conquer this challenge and hopefully overcome it and have success in the first test with the bowling attack that they have. No doubt they'll take 20 wickets. They're good enough to do that.
Yes, very true. John here says, please find us another Gilly. I mean, Adam Gilchrist, obviously, I think probably is the best wicket keeper in Test cricket all time. I would feel one of the best. I don't know if anyone can replicate the success that Adam Gilchrist has done in the past. But Jack, do you see any other wicket keeper who could possibly? I mean, Alex Carey's there, but I'm not sure whether he has that potential. But he can improve. He has a lot to improve, and I think he could come into the standards of Adam Gilchrist. But do you see anyone touching this replicate or even succeed? I mean, a keeper like Adam Gilchrist, because it's very difficult to obviously have a keeper like Adam Gilchrist.
Yeah, I don't think so. No one can replace Adam Gilchrist. He's a one-of-a-kind player. He's once in a lifetime wicketkeeper who changed the role of the wicketkeeper for good. He's just a wonderful keeper. And obviously the last Australian captain to win a test series in India, of course, in 2004, because he filled in for Ricky Ponting, who was injured. And Ricky Ponting only played the last test of that series. So, yeah, you can't replace, you can't find another Adam Gilchrist. It's impossible. So, I'm not sure if there's too many in the similar mold to Adam Gilchrist at the moment in Australian cricket, but, we can only, deal what we have at the moment. And Alex Carey's good enough to play Test cricket. He deserves to be here, and he's worked hard. So hopefully he'll have a good series, as we've discussed. But very hard to find another Gilly. But hope we all wish as Australian fans to have another Adam Gilchrist at the side. But it was wonderful to see him play. That's for sure.
Very true. John here says 5 batsmen, 5 bowlers for me. Think the selectors might have to take a chance. Think less conservatively. Do you agree with him over here?
Yes, I agree with the conservative approach there, because Ian Chappell, former Australian captain, said, as a captain, you have to look to win the game from ball 1. You don't have to look to lose the game from ball 1. You can lose the game from ball 1 if you're trying to win. For Australia to win this series, they have to be ruthless. They can't be conservative. Look what England are doing with Ben Stokes. You take the game on, you be positive, you're going to win more games, are you? Then lose because you're taking the game on. It's the same with India as well. They play timid and conservative. They won't win this series. So I think both teams have to be less conservative and be aggressive and be positive with their cricket. And John's right there. The selectors will have to take a punt, because if it's the best way to win the test, then do it. No regrets. It's not every day you win a test or a test series in India. So you got to be ruthless, and you got to be positive and aggressive. So I agree with that, because that's the best way to play cricket. You got to be positive. You can't be negative in cricket. That's the best way to go about it. Because if you think positively, your performance will be heavily affected by that, because you will perform better. If you're thinking negatively, it will lead to a negative performance, and you won't perform as well. So positive approach is the way to go. And Australia will definitely do that. They'll look to try and win this series from any position if they can. But both teams have to be aggressive if they are going to win this series.
Yeah, because I think Australia have lacked a bit of aggressiveness. We saw back in the Ricky Ponting era also, they were really, really aggressive, especially against opposition teams and all. But I'm not seeing that aggressiveness recently with the Australian team, especially with the banters, especially being fearless. Not seeing that from Australia, I think, for a few years, I would feel, since Ricky Ponting and the core departed, not seen much of aggressive cricket. I mean, the aggression on the field, especially from the Australian team.
Yeah, you could say that. I think after what happened in South Africa has changed that.
Yeah.
Many people didn't like the behaviour of the Australian team on the field. And look,
Yeah.
really, sledging and, talking on the field, you really, at the end of the day, just get on with it and just play the cricket. Just play cricket, you know. Um,
Great.
yeah, you can say a few words, banter's okay, but outright abuse or sledging's not tolerated. So I think with Australia there, they sort of crossed the line a little bit with that. It's a different approach. Yeah, they're still aggressive, but it's in a different
Yes.
way than we associate with Australian teams in the past, like with Ponting, Steve Waugh, Mark Taylor, all those guys. It's a different sort of aggression. It's there, but it's in a different form than it was before. So, Australia still have that aggressive instinct. That's just how Australian teams play over the years. That's what Australian cricket has based itself off. But it's just in a different form. So, yeah, Australia will be aggressive in this series. They'll show it with their batting and bowling. You can show aggression. You can show that sort of intent in different ways.
Yeah.
Than rather just being yelling and shouting in your face or whatever. You can show it in many different ways than that. With your batting, running between the wickets, bowling bounces, or bowling, fast. So Australia would definitely do that, but it's a different sort of approach, which is sort of Pat Cummins' sort of style of captaincy. Really, he's not really a captain that's in your face. He's more of a calming, relaxed type character.
Yeah, and then that's what John also is saying. Pat's approach as a captain is to be patient, not flustered, but less backchat. Yeah, that's what we've been seeing
that's
from
right.
Pat
That's right.
throughout the past year, and that's what even Jack mentioned. So to wrap things up, Jack, what do you feel the predictions are going to be? Because this is very crucial for India's side. I think Australia has already qualified for the WTC finals, so obviously for them it's less. I mean, even if they lose, it won't matter much. But obviously, Australia's result is going to matter to teams like Sri Lanka or South Africa, obviously, because I think India have to obviously win a minimum of 3 test matches against Australia to obviously qualify for the finals of WTC. Otherwise, it could go in the way of Sri Lanka and South Africa, perhaps, for them to win against New Zealand and West Indies, respectively, to obviously qualify for the WTC final. And obviously, Australia wouldn't mind any opponent right now with how they're performing right now for in the World Test Championship right now, the current cycle. So how do you see this series going on? Do you see Australia obviously having a chance of beating India for the first time since 2004, 2005, or do you see it's going to be drawn, or do you see India having a chance of taking back, retaining that Border-Gavaskar Trophy?
Yeah, yeah, it's a tough question, isn't it? It could go either way. I really do. Putting my Australian hat on, I would like Australia to win, of course, and of course, I'm going to say Australia to win.
Yes.
I hope they win the series outright and win their 5th series in India overall. I hope they do that. But I feel this series is going to be an arm wrestle. I think both teams are going to go back and forth, and you can't separate them at the end of the last test. It could be a drawn test. It could be 2-2, and they share the trophy and India retain it. So it could be that. It could end up like that.
Yeah.
It's going to be an arm wrestle. It's going to be a real battle. It's going to be a grind. I hope Australia win the series. Let's just say that. I think Australia should win the series. But India at home are favourites, of course. There's a lot to play for, WTC and all that, as we mentioned. Australia's pretty much booked their place. If they win a test match in this series and then go on to lose the series, they're pretty much in the WTC anyway. And then India have to win a certain amount of matches to qualify. As you mentioned,
anyways, I think India don't have a good record when it comes to first test. I think back in 2016-17 also, I think Australia beat India in the first test, and then
Yes,
went
in
on to
Pune,
lose
yes.
2-1 to they went on to lose 2-1 in the test series. So anyways, I think Australia do start as favorite. I know obviously India is favorites at home, but you never know. I think this could be the strongest Australian squad going into India this time around, and looks really settled in Australia comfortably at number one in the WTC standings as well. And obviously with this squad, they can definitely test India. For me as a neutral fan, probably I'm going with a drawn series. I think both teams look really, really solid. I think it's really tough to see any weaknesses apart from both of them, any strengths. I mean, both are equally, I mean, they are both equal. So, I mean, both of the teams look really, really good. So, let's just see how it goes. But thank you so much, Jack, once again for joining for this preview. It's just past an hour, and thank you so much in the comment section as well, John, for also joining, and the others as well. Please do subscribe to Sports Radar, and please do check out the Dibbly Dobbly Podcast. I think they put out a video on the preview today of India versus Australia, so do check that out. Probably I put that link in the description also. Do subscribe to Dibbly Dobbly Podcast because they do so much videos. They do exclusively on Australia cricket also. So do check them out. And thank you so much, Jack, once again for joining.
Thank you, Powan. Yes, it's great to talk cricket as always, and looking forward to a very interesting series ahead of us, and hopefully it will be an interesting series, and may the best team win at the end of the day. And we just want to see some good cricket, and I hope we do.
Yeah, I agree with you. So, guys, so we'll end over here. So, thank you so much. Once again, do like, comment, and share. Do subscribe to both our channels, the Sports Breakdown and the Dibbly Dobbly Podcast. And let's see if we can cover the Border-Gavaskar Trophy starting on the 9th February at Nagpur. So, hopefully, we can cover more and probably do a bit of live watch-alongs and probably a review at the end of each test. So, let's see. It's going to be a very interesting series, 4 test matches. So, let's see who conquers it all. So thank you so much, guys, and see you in the next video. Thank you so much.